Another 60 minutes of analysis on stories that have kept us talking this week. Good morning, I'm Alicia Jali. Here's what we have for you on today's show. We start by looking at the passing of the 20th anniversary of the South African Constitution and also interrogate the latest developments in the shocking SASA scandal. Now, PRASA has found itself in the headlines again this week as former acting CEO has now been fired over an irregular salary increment. And finally, we look at the political uncertainty that is currently unfolding in Lesotho. But first, as always, it's 900 hours, time for the news headlines. Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini has not yet indicated whether she will accept Scopa's invitation to appear before the Financial Watchdog Committee next week. Dlamini failed to appear before Scopa last week as concern mounted about whether Social Security Agency SASSA will pay out social grants next month. Now, we are waiting to cross live to Pretoria, where the minister will be briefing the media more on this matter, so stay tuned for that. Now, Bloemfontein police say more arrests are imminent in connection with the murder of a 30-year-old man at Caleb Motabi settlement out in Mangaung. Solomon Maweni was stabbed to death yesterday, and his murder allegedly led to the community burning to death two men they accused of being part of a group that killed Maweni, and police say one person has since been arrested. And in some good turnaround news, the Blitzbog are in the World Sevens Cup semis after beating a tough Australian side 17-14 in a tightly contested match. Roscoe Speckman saved South Africa from certain loss when he fired the Bokke back in the lead in the dying minutes of the game. Now, South Africa will face host United States in the early hours of Monday morning. All right, a very good morning. Let me welcome our digital news producer, Mr. Tsepiso Moche. Tsepiso, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Alicia.
All right, and of course, on the main panel, let's welcome political analyst Mr. Zamika Maseti, as well as Professor Stephen Friedman. Gentlemen, what a pleasure to have you both. Good morning.
Thank you very much for having us. A very good morning to you.
All right. Well, Tsepiso, let's take it away. The big hashtag this week, I can tell you what it is.
Well, the biggest hashtag for this week was SASA.
Of course.
Yes, and it's still trending even today, simply because there's confusion and uncertainty over the grants payment, which is going to take place on the 1st of April. Now, people have taken to Twitter to express their concern regarding the uncertainty and the confusion over the SASA debacle.
All right, Tsepe, so we're going to take a look at the tweets. Let's quickly have a look at the tweets in the interim. And of course, let's see what they have on those tweets. Let me take those tweets for you, Tsepe. So very quickly, Graham Black, they're saying hashtag SASA's deliberate negligence should result in criminal charges against heads. They've put lives of millions at risks. And Buhlebezwe Gumete, they says hashtag SASA, if ever they fail to deliver, fire them all at once. And Yamkela Mexker says hashtag SASA, let them stop it and the government will see how hungry people are dangerous. Kanjade. I mean, it's a very interesting topic that has got society divided, Tsipis.
Yes, and a lot of people...
All right, we still have a problem with your mic, Tsepi, so it's fine. Let me quickly find out for my guest there. Mr. Maseti, I know we're going to talk about this later on in the show. In fact, there is a press briefing that is going to take place on this matter any time from now. But your current views on the situation?
You know, Alicia, it lays the basis for our mini Tunisia moments. This contract was declared invalid by the Constitutional Court in 2015, and the minister, the political head, did absolutely nothing. And I think we don't deserve leaders like this in South Africa who disregard court rulings and also our constitution.
Professor?
Well, I think the first point to make is that it would be a catastrophe if the grants are not paid. I'm pretty confident the grants will be paid. But the real battle at the moment, which is happening in government, is who's going to pay for what the minister did. Because, in effect, what the minister has done is created a situation where the only way in which we can pay social grants is by paying a company large amounts of money, and it's a company which the Constitutional Court said shouldn't actually be providing those grants. So it is a very serious issue. And the impression is being created that people are using the importance of social grants almost as a form of blackmail to say, well, unless you give us the money we want, we're not paying out grants, which everybody accepts would be a disaster.
Very interesting. You know, we're going to talk about this a lot further on, but let's carry on and see what we have on the rest of the digital news today. Let's have a look. And of course, that was another big story this week was the roof collapse at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. Let's take some tweets there. Sineketi Wehlanze says, really hope this thunder remains just that. Can't have it rain. The collapse at Charlotte Maxeke. Sanga Magalela says, my prayers go out to all those trapped and affected by the roof collapse at the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. And Gerard van Niekerk says not only structural defects of Charlotte Maxeke Hospital, it's a sign of the collapse of our healthcare system. And it's sickening. Professor, what do you think about these views?
Look, we ought to be worried about the healthcare system. I mean, what happened in this particular case, from what we can piece together, is that an incompetent contractor was hired. So it's less a case of looking at the health system and look at the standards we use to hire people. I mean, particularly in hospitals where people are vulnerable, etc. There clearly needs to be much tighter processes to make sure that if you hire contractors at hospitals, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
This one clearly didn't.
Mr. Masetti.
Yeah, well, I don't think I can say much, but really the point is we need to make sure that when these tenders go out, the right people and who are better qualified are the ones who get these tenders.
Absolutely. All right. We're going to look into that saga a little later on. Let's have a look at the final big digital hashtag of this week. I do apologize. We're having sound problems with our digital producer there. But fans are disappointed with Soweto Derby draw. I mean, the two Soweto Giants of South African football only managed to score a goal each during a Premier League match. And need I add that that other goal was not scored, it was an own goal. Gentlemen, let's have a look at the tweets though. I like the reaction at Silva Tlaho says, it's a crime to still believe both Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates are big teams football-wise in South Africa. Very interesting turn of events. T-Bag says, regardless how bored you can be, never waste time with Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates game. And Musanda Simtumule says the Soweto draw, RT Orlando Pirates full-time, Kaizer Chiefs 1-1. Well, fans are disappointed. I mean, already people were saying the spirit of the derby is no longer there. People don't even want to buy tickets, Mr. Maset.
Well, I watched the match and
an interesting first half.
Very quick to equalize. Yeah, well, to me it's a reconciliatory score, so they all have to win.
Professor,
we want to point out to viewers that this was a match between number 4 and number 11. Okay. If you want excitement, watch the matches between numbers 1, 2, and 3.
All right. Well, that's where we leave it with your digital news this week. We hope that you're going to join us again next week. We're going to take a quick ad break, and hopefully before that, or rather, let's go straight to Pretoria, where Minister Batshabile Dlamini is about, of course, to brief the media about the SASSA saga, or rather, let's take a quick ad break, and we'll go there next.
as well as myself as the executive authority of the Department of Social Development and its agency, the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, to brief South Africans who are benefiting from the 17 million social grants. SASSA was established in 2006 through the SASSA Act to administer and pay social grants. During this period, it has been able to only administer the grants and relied on third parties' grants. It is important to explain to South Africans the developments as at SASSA from where they were to where they are now. It has always been my aim as a minister and role as a leader as a leader in the social development sector, to build for the benefit of the millions of South Africans living in poverty. A world-class social security system that is based on lessons, experiences, and best practices of the world. It has always been our aim to build the best infrastructure and obtain the latest information technology systems. Throughout the decade of SASSA's existence, we have gone through numerous transitions, starting from the establishment of the organization, the consolidation and standardization of the payment systems from fragmented provincial systems, the introduction of a new payment service provider, plus registration, where we took over from more than 5 payment providers to one integrated grant payment system. The road has been very long and full of challenges, but South Africans were always guaranteed their payment. True to our commitment to pay the right social grant to the right person at the right place and time, njalo, we will continue paying social grants beyond March 31. Let me repeat. We will continue paying social grants beyond March 31. And on the 1st of April, we will be paying grants. When the current contract with the current service provider comes to an end. This is and has been our singular focus, and we remain committed to the vision. Social assistance is a constitutional right, and we dare not fail in delivering this statutory obligation as mandated by the SASSA Act. Social assistance is at the heart of this government poverty alleviation program and the restoration of the dignity of our people. SASSA is an agency of the Department of Social Development whose sole mandate is to protect children, older persons, and people with disabilities. We are the custodians of every legislation that speaks on the protection and upholding the dignity of all vulnerable groups. I mention dignity and protection because this is the foundation upon which I'm obliged and obligated to make sure that social grant beneficiaries receive their grants with dignity. We come from a very painful past where we have witnessed long queues, deaths, and robberies at pay points. Older persons, majority of them being women, sleeping outside banks just to be first in line to receive their money. We needed a system that will make sure that your status in society does not make you less of a human being. Additionally, the National Development Plan makes specific pronouncements around the role of this program as part of building and developing sustainable nation that guarantees dignity and welfare to all its citizens. The governing party is also committed to radical economic transformation. As mandated by the African National Congress, which is the ruling party, the Department of Social Development and SASSA have 140 billion rand social assistance muscle, which goes directly to beneficiaries that has a potential to help equalize and change the lives of the majority of our people in the country. Currently, the money revolves around the same retailers and leaves communities, the minute beneficiaries, this leaves communities, the minute beneficiaries from grant money. This has to change. Fraud and corruption is well documented in cash transfer systems throughout the world, and South Africa is no different. We constantly need to innovate and remain ahead of both syndicates and recipients, working with some of our officials to protect the social grants investment. South Africans, through their taxes, contribute more than 11 billion rand every month, and we must manage this investment with utmost care and diligence. The majority of staff at SASSA understand this and are committed, hard-working, and loyal individuals who know that theirs is about putting on the table the most basic need of our people. Our system has seen the worst form of abuse and theft. This is the reason biometric verification must be at the center of recipient authentication, as advised by the Taylor Commission report in 2002. And I will not back down on this requirement. It has saved the fiscus 2 billion and has provided SASSA with an accurate and a secure transition environment. Today, the work of SASSA has influenced the banking sector through the Payment Association of South Africa to adopt a biometric standard for the industry. When I joined the Department of Social Development in 2010, I was presented with a report by SASSA, which was developed by a panel of independent advisors who analyzed challenges relating to the then payment system problems faced by beneficiaries and the administrative issues within SASSA. It contributed to the decision of establishing the Ministerial Advisory Committee. And the sole mandate of the committee was to advise the minister on the future payment model for social assistance benefits. The committee commenced its work on September 2, 2013. It has to integrate the shortfalls of the old system, investigate the most suitable payment system, and recommend options that can be adopted and adapted for South Africa. The committee benchmarked with international best practices and also with experts from all over the world acquired through South Africa European Union Dialogue Facility. They submitted their report in December 2014, which recommended that SASSA should build its own payment system and that work streams should be established to facilitate the implementation of the recommendations of the committee. It further advised that in order to speed up the insourcing process, some members of the advisory committee could be retained. It should be noted that the Ministerial Advisory Committee completed its work long before its prescribed date of completion. By August 2015, in their draft report, the committee had already recommended that it be disbanded in order to speed up the implementation of the recommendations. Ladies and gentlemen, it should be noted that at this time, the tender with Cash Pay Master Services had already been awarded and had been through a tedious court processes with a pronouncement that the tender was constitutionally invalid. In upholding the challenge, the court ordered that SASSA run a new tender process for a period of 5 years and that SASSA must file a report with the Constitutional Court setting out all relevant information on when it would be ready to take over the payment of social grants. The declaration of invalidity was subsequently suspended pending SASSA's decision to award a new tender after completion of the tender processes. In the event of SASSA not awarding a new tender, the said declaration of invalidity further suspended until the expiry date of the contract, which is 31 March 2017. Towards the end of 2014, SASSA advertised the tender as per the court order, with the intention to appoint a service provider for a period of 5 years for the payment of social grants. The new contract would have ended in 2019, at which point, and thus SASSA would have taken over by that period. It should be noted that the tender was adjudicated in October 2015 in line with the Constitutional Court timelines. However, the tender was not awarded due to non-responsive bids. And I think it's important for us to mention that at the time, 5 companies bidded for the tender. 2 withdrew towards the finalization of tender processes, and then the 3 that remained did not have the capacity to handle or deal with the issues we had raised as the department. On the 5th of November 2015, SASSA filed progress report to the Constitutional Court. The progress report by SASSA set out the steps in terms of which SASSA proposed to assume the duty to take over the payment function itself after 31 March 2017. Pursuant to the filing of the progress report, the court issued an order on 25 November 2015, in terms of which the court stated its satisfaction with SASSA's progress report, and as such, the Constitutional Court discharged its supervisory jurisdiction over SASSA on this matter. Work streams were formed in line with the recommendation of the Ministerial Advisory Committee because, firstly, the SASSA management team had their day-to-day running of the organization and could not simultaneously run a hugely complex and intense transition project that needs experts. Secondly, SASSA was preparing to take over the payment of grants and did not have the expertise within the organization because this function has always been outsourced. The work stream started in August 2016, and they have since flushed out the advisory committee's proposals and developed a project plan and preliminary costing for the project. By end of October 2016, the work streams had issued the first draft report. After due diligence conducted to both the SASSA and the current service provider, the phased approach to the optimal model was recommended. It was through their analysis that we appreciated the complexity of the program and that the initial timelines that were presented to the Concord underestimated the effort and capacity required to prepare SASSA for the insourcing process. Subsequently, legal opinions were sought to advise on possible critical steps to ensure successful payment of social grants come 1 April 2017. And then we have a summary of legal opinions. The first one by Senior Counsel Trent Groove, which says due to that the tender was declared invalid, but invalidity was suspended. SASSA would need to go to a competitive procurement process. However, due to time constraints, SASSA could consider contracting CPS through emergency procurement process. To follow on the latter, SASSA had options of minimizing the extent to which it might enter into an unlawful arrangement with CPS, both in duration and scope. SASSA should apply for National Treasury's prior approval for a deviation from normal bidding processes in terms of paragraph 8.5 of the National Treasury Instruction of 2016-17. That's Treasury Instruction 3. SASSA to seek agreement to an interim arrangement to continue to pay social grants in the same or similar terms that limits the scope of the CPS function. SASSA should file a full discourse report of its intent arrangement to Constitutional Court, National Treasury, and the Auditor General. And we embarked on stakeholder engagements. And then the first engagement was between SASSA, Social Development, National Treasury, and South African Reserve Bank. And we formed a task team. And an interim task team was appointed by the CEO of SASSA, together with the Directors General of the Department of Social Development and the National Treasury, as well as the Deputy Governor of the South African Reserve Bank, so as to ensure that there was a smooth transition over the short and medium term. The task team comprised of technical managers from the 4 institutions. The team evaluated the risks associated with transition options which exist for SASSA to ensure that grants are paid on the 1st of April 2017. They sought to outline these transition options, analyze the risk of each, and set out a timeline for the transitional arrangements over the short and medium term. The following transitional options were considered. Option number 1, procuring the service from the existing service provider. Number 2, procuring the service from the bank that services the majority of the beneficiaries. That was a Green Road. Option 3, procuring the services from all banks wishing to comply with SASSA's requirements. Option number 4, procuring the services from all banks that comply with SASSA's requirements for those beneficiaries who have access to banking services, and procuring the services of a service provider for those who are currently receiving their cash from pay points. Option 5, procuring the services of the South African Post Office. Option 6, appointing a new supplier for cash distribution and utilizing the banks for beneficiaries with bank accounts. Engagements between Minister of Social Development and Minister of Finance. As part of the consultation between SASSA and National Treasury, a number of engagements around the options, recommendations made, and seeking counsel ensued. This continued in line with our working relations and guideline around such projects. I have a detailed account of these arrangements. On the 1st of February, we wrote a letter to the Minister of Finance highlighting the options considered to ensure smooth payments of grants on the 1st of April, and subsequent decision to utilize the proposed interim arrangements with CPS, considering the important role that the National Treasury is envisaged in the envisaged process. This matter was aimed at seeking preliminary with the Minister of Finance. On the same day, the Minister of Finance also wrote to the Minister of Social Development, acknowledging the work of the technical team and supporting the option that was proposed by the National Treasury in the task team. The Minister further stated that the National Treasury cannot support the option to use CPS if Constitutional Court approval has not been sought. On the 8th of February 2017, the Minister of Social Development wrote a follow-up letter to the Minister of Finance to clarify the legal opinion of senior counsel and also to further motivate for the rationale for taking decision to proceed with CPS. On 13 February, the Minister of Finance responded to the Minister of Social Development, wherein he acknowledged that the Minister of Social Development holds the sole and primary executive responsibility for the function, and that SASSA has the final decision on this option to utilize from the 1st April 2017 and take responsibility for the decision. Engagements with the South African Post Office. SASSA has worked with SAPO over the years, and we are still working with them presently on some of the projects. In 2010, the agency took a conscious decision to migrate beneficiaries to electronic system payment with SAPO as primary stakeholder. SASSA remains committed to utilize SAPO's over 2,600 outlets as part of the payment vehicle for social grants in transition and future phases. And maybe I should mention here that amongst the 6 options that were put forward by the technical team, we had also SAPO, because people have been leaving out SAPO. And we have also agreed that SAPO will be amongst the first team that will be used, or that will work with us so as to outphase the registration process, which is going to be run by SASSA. And therefore, we are going to work very closely with SAPO. And we have always motivated why it's important to work with the post office. The post office is the agency of the state. And we believe that all departments have to work with SAPO so that we have an agency of the government that is strong and institutions that deal with finances. And we've also chosen a niche as the Department of Social Development. Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. Over the past 3 years, consistent work has been done to prepare for the payment function in sourcing. Through government-to-government collaboration, SASSA engaged the services of CSIR to conduct research on various elements of the payment process, including the feasibility assessment status quo analysis of the payment process in South Africa, and investigation towards development of biometric standards. To date, based on the foundations of the work done by SASSA and CSIR, South Africa has a biometric standards for the banking industry. The Department of Home Affairs, SASSA has an ongoing relationship and engagements with the Department of Home Affairs, in particular with regard to identity verification and authentication through the population register and harness. Through this process, SASSA has been able to share with Home Affairs the biometrics of children. Future plans for SASSA. In conclusion, I would like to summarize the path that will be followed towards the future payment model for SASSA. Our ultimate goal is that SASSA should provide an integrated grant administration and payment process. This entails SASSA acquiring own payment card, which can operate in an open and closed system underpinned by the use of a biometric authentication system. The new payment plan is implemented over 4 phases. The 2 first phases have already passed. That of the first team that we found dealing with the challenges facing our communities, and then the task of the advisory committee, and then planning. The next phase is planning for the transition, including phasing out of the current service provider between the years 2015, 2016 to 2016, 2017. The next phase is the transition, April 2017 to March 2019. Phase 3, full rollout from April 2019. Finally, on the 1st of April, SASSA begins a new era in continued development. As has been the case in the past, no one will go unpaid. We are focused on our mandate to deliver social assistance to the country's most vulnerable. We will work with all the key stakeholders and with the legal and regulatory framework that govern our work and actions. We cannot afford to be distracted on our focus to be able to live to this promise to our grant beneficiaries, to pay the right social grant to the right person at the right place and time. Njalo. I thank you.
There are also information for this presentation. We will not be taking questions on Mr. David's resignation. Any matter currently before the court will not be discussed because it's subject to decay. Any unsubstantiated claims from faceless sources will not be entertained because anyone who is opposed to foreign corruption should be able to speak on the record. Lastly, we are gathered here as South Africans, all agree that social grants are important for South Africans. So this means we love the social grants. The social grants do not create dependency. The social grants do not encourage young people to fall pregnant. We will take 2 questions and
now. I've got two burning hands. First one is Paul.
Good morning, Minister. Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. Three very short questions. First of all, can you confirm that you have finalized the deal with cash pay masters? Secondly, what is the duration of this contract? And then thirdly, what is the rate? Is it higher than the 16 Rand 44 per beneficiary, or is it at the same? Thank you.
Okay, the second one will be quickly Marianne.
Hi, good morning. Marianne Merton from Daily Maverick. Would you be able to please indicate on what basis and what reasoning we're looking at extending cash paymaster services given the Constitutional Court ruling dating back to April 2014? And would you also please clarify the issue around what appears to be contrasting statements? On the one hand, the Minister is saying there were engagements with National Treasury. On the other hand, the National Treasury has issued a public press statement saying that they are not involved in the process. And would you please also comment on the resignation of your Director General and what are the terms and conditions of this resignation? Is he, for example, serving a 3-month period, or is it something that comes into effect immediately? Thank you.
Yonka, that will be all for now in Cape Town.
We have said that we are not going to entertain any questions on the resignation of Zaindango. SABC? SABC? I'm the program director here. SABC? I am the program director. I'll take the question.
All right. We were also going to ask on the resignation of Tambo Lumka. I think it would be quite... We cannot shy away from the fact that while this crisis has been unfolding, you've all of a sudden got the resignation of the Director General. And he went on radio yesterday making damning allegations against the Minister, saying there was a breakdown in the relationship with the Minister. So I think it's not far-fetched from the issue that we're addressing here at the moment. While all of this is unfolding, you've also got a Director General who's decided to walk out. If we could get the Minister just to, articulate on the so-called breakdown in relationship that she's had with the Director General.
Minister, it is a decision that we're not going to take questions on the resignation of Zaindango.
First of all, you were speaking about the government is committed to radical economic transformation, yet CPS was found to have done an illegal tender by the Constitutional Court because it had been dishonest about its BE qualifications. Your department has laid criminal charges against CPS over making illegal deductions from the poorest of the poor. If you are continuing a deal with them, what does that say about whether the government is genuinely committed to radical economic transformation? Second of all, Treasury has described this as a self-created crisis. It didn't need to happen. You knew in October last year that you were unable to continue with this deal. You were advised to make an urgent report to the Constitutional Court, which you did not do. You only recently did this on Friday. And we've seen organizations like COSATU and even Colin Mahine saying there needs to be accountability, and COSATU openly calling for your resignation. Why should you still be in your position given the enormity of the crisis that your department has created? Thank you.
Good morning, Basitsana from ANN7. Should the procurement of the existing provider not be successful, how safe will it be for those who will be collecting the grants and those who will be transporting the grants through the different other 6 mediums that the Minister has made mention of?
Minister?
Thank you very much, Program Director. Maybe I should allow Zodwa. Is the CFO around? The CFO, and then we will answer if there are remaining questions. But about Mr. Dango. Mr. Dango is well respected within the sectors of social development. And then I'm not going to come here and discuss his issues. We are going to discuss them internally, and then we'll take the process forward. But here, I'm not going to discuss anything about him. If he wanted to make allegations or explain to the media, that was his choice. And that is not how I work with people. And then, secondly, I think we all know that we don't join, or I did not join the ANC to be a minister. In the ANC, you are appointed by the president. And if you are not performing well, again, he asks you to recuse yourself so that those that are still fit or would perform better under the circumstances would be given an opportunity to serve. But it must be clear that no one joins the ANC to be a minister or whatever position. So I never joined the ANC to be a minister. It should not be taken as if when I'm no longer a minister, it would mean the end of the world. And that, secondly, people who went out to complain about the crisis knew what they were doing. And it's not the first time we have this problem. During the elections, there was a question that was defined in a particular way. And then people enjoyed themselves. And now again, people just come out to say grants are not going to be paid on the 1st of April without evidence. And I must say that if we deal with such issues, we have to work with other partners. And that is what we've been doing with the Treasury and the Ministry. The press statement that I saw was talking about the negotiations, but also we must not report one side of the story or half-truths and leave other things. We had invited the Treasury to the negotiations because they are very important in this process. And then on their own, they decided that they were not coming. And therefore, that is why when we issued a statement, we said these are the people that will be participating in the negotiation process. And therefore, thereafter, the Treasury said, no, we are not part of the negotiations. It's also their right to do so if they thought it was important for them to raise that.
Let's take the question on CPS and the agreement.
In this context, a deal will mean a sign of contract and a service level agreement. And the signed of contract will entail the deliverables and the cost structure. Therefore, there is no deal in this file that has been provided. We are still going to follow our internal processes that will lead to the conclusion of this process with the signing of the contract. The answer is there is no deal at hand. Thank you.
There questions on, I think from Cape Town, there are questions on, I think there are questions on the processes from Cape Town. Okay, no, it's fine. Let's take more questions in Pretoria. We'll take 3 questions and we'll close the question and answer session. Thank you,
Ms. Olifant. Good morning, Minister. I wish to draw your attention to part 1.2 of your explanation. The Minister highlights the conversations between the Minister herself and the Finance Minister, Mr. Pravin Gordhan. I wish to ask, Minister, do you feel unsupported by Minister Pravin Gordhan because you wrote to him twice and he responded with decline and seemingly unhelpful? So my question is, do you feel that he was unsupportive to you and the department and the potential crisis that you are going through? We're also aware that you're one of the ministers who did not give Mr. Pravin Gordhan a standing ovation at the budget speech. So my question is there conflict between you and Mr. Pravin Gordhan, or do you just feel unsupported by him and the Treasury and the Finance Department? Thank you, Minister.
Give her your hand up, and we'll take you as the last question for the briefing.
No, sorry, Lumka, I'm sorry, but we can't do that.
This is our media briefing.
No, Lumka, you are responsible for
I'm sorry, given that you've given me the floor, Philip de Wet from the Bank Guardian. Minister, we have many very pressing questions to ask you. These questions need to be put in the interest of the nation. Can we have a ruling from you, please, that you will continue to answer questions? Are you running away from questions? Do you wish to shut down this media conference so that we can't ask these questions?
Thompson from MoneyWeb. We'd just like to state our objection to not being able to ask questions on the resignation of your DG Zane Tango. If I've understood what's happened here correctly, we had that announcement that you had reached a deal with CPS after 3 days of negotiations. Now you're telling us there's no deal with CPS. As far as we understand it, the department cannot pay social grants at the end of this month without the deal with CPS. So can you just clarify how's this deal going to get done, and if you don't reach an agreement with CPS, how are the grants going to be paid after the end of this month? Thank you.
Please clarify the question. The answer, please.
Sorry, Lumka, may you kindly use the mic?
No, there's a two mic that I want.
Thank you. May I clarify again? I said a deal in this context will mean the signing off of the contract and the service level agreement. That has not happened. That's why I'm saying the internal process will unfold that will ultimately lead us to the signing off. So what I'm saying currently, we have not signed off, and therefore there is no deal in that context. Thank you.
Minister, can you please respond to the questions before you?
I don't want to respond to questions of people who want to impose themselves on us. I really think if people want to ask questions, they can ask them, but what the nuances and everything that follows the suggestions are not helping all of us, because we are here to explain to the nation about the 1st of April. And it should be clear to all of us here that on the 1st of April, we are paying grants. And the most important people in this whole thing are our ordinary grant beneficiaries. They will get their grant on the 1st of April. And we are sure about that. And we are still busy with the processes of the government. And we're not going to come here and preempt those processes. When the right time comes, we will come and talk about the stages we've gone through. Yesterday's meeting where we reported about progress, and then when we are all satisfied about progress, we will report on the matter. And then standing ovation. I think people must be really fair. When usually malicious people do what suits them. I stood up there, clapped, and sat down. And therefore, whoever took that photo wanted to show that. And unfortunately, South Africans discuss non-issues. The standing ovation and clapping of hands, could this be discussed by the whole country and occupy corridors and high offices? I really feel that in this, together with my other colleagues, we were that was a very sad situation. And then, yes, we've had conversations with the finance minister. We also had a meeting yesterday. And what I saw is that the minister will continue working with us. Never mind other things, letters, because they've also been leaked. What is said, am I, Lunga?
Minister is on the floor. Can she be respected while she's speaking? She's talking, and you are putting up your hands while she's talking. We have noted you.
Sorry, Lumka, I feel from the ENCA reporters, I asked a question. The reporter, the minister is responding to me. I feel you'll get your opportunity to ask the question. Allow her to respond to me as she has responded to Karen Moon. So after the response, you can raise your hand, but just allow me to get my answer. Thank you.
I will just clarify this once again. The minister has said she will not be answering to people who have come here with their own motives. She is saying that she will answer when all the questions that she has answered. After this question, we are going to close the briefing because at 10, the JCPS cluster must brief.
Okay, we've exchanged correspondence with the minister, and there are areas where we wanted or where we had to highlight our call as the Department of Human Rights like come up, those that come from saying that the banks are ready,